The alarm bells rang through the Galactic Empire's First Contact Division headquarters on Centauri Prime. Commander Zixithara rushed to her station, her purple tentacles moving quickly across the control panel. In her 50 years of service, she had handled first contact with 43 different species. Some came with weapons ready for war. Others came begging for help. Many came with religious ceremonies, treating the Empire like gods. But this was different. The message came from the edge of known space. A calm human voice spoke in perfect galactic standard, which should have been impossible. No human had ever made contact with the Empire before. The voice belonged to Captain Jake Miller of something called the New Horizon. "Greetings to the Galactic Empire," the message said. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We would like to arrange a meeting with your leadership. We have some time available next week if that works for you." Zixithara played the message 3 times. The captain's tone was so casual, so ordinary. He sounded like he was scheduling a lunch meeting, not making first contact with the most powerful force in the galaxy. Most species either screamed threats or whispered prayers when they first called the Empire. This human talked like he was ordering coffee. The Empire's sensors quickly found the human ships. 3 vessels hung in space near the border. They were small compared to Imperial dreadnoughts, roughly the size of escort ships. The Empire's massive fleet could destroy them in seconds. Yet something about the humans' calm confidence made Zixithara nervous. Admiral Korth approved the meeting. The humans were told to approach the neutral station at Delta 7. When their ships arrived, Zixithara watched from the observation deck. The human vessels moved slowly and steadily. No aggressive maneuvers, no defensive formations. They flew, like merchant ships heading to market. The airlock opened and 3 humans walked out. Zixithara had studied the files quickly prepared by Imperial intelligence. Humans looked similar to several known species, but smaller and softer. These 3 wore simple blue uniforms with no visible weapons. The leader was Dr. Lisa Park, a woman with short brown hair and calm eyes. Behind her came Captain Jake Miller, a tall man who kept looking around with mild interest. The third was Commander Ben Torres, who carried what looked like an actual paper book. "Welcome to Delta 7 Station," Zixithara said in her most formal voice. "I am Commander Zixithara of the Veltari Hegemony, speaking for the Galactic Empire. Doctor." Park smiled and shook Zixithara's hand, which surprised the alien diplomat. Most species had elaborate greeting rituals. "Thank you for meeting with us. This is a beautiful station. I love what you've done with the lighting." Zixithara blinked her large eyes. Beautiful lighting. They were discussing the future of an entire species, and this human was complimenting the interior design. They moved to the main conference room. Zixithara had chosen this room carefully. The walls showed images of the Empire's might. Massive fleets filled with millions of ships. Conquered, world-spanning 12,000 systems. The ceiling displayed the Empire's symbol, a golden star surrounded by rings representing subjugated species. Most aliens who entered this room either cowered in fear or puffed up with anger. The humans looked around with polite interest. "Captain," Miller even pointed at one of the fleet images and said, "Nice formation, very efficient use of space." "Please sit," Zixithara said. The humans took their seats without ceremony. Commander Torres opened his book and began reading. "Actually reading during a first contact meeting. We must discuss your species' place in the galactic order," Zixithara began. "The Empire has rules. New species must prove themselves worthy of membership. Usually this requires demonstrations of military might, technological advancement, or valuable resources." Dr. Park nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Large organizations need structure. What kind of demonstrations did you have in mind?" Again, that calm tone. Zixithara felt off balance. "Your ships are quite small," she said. "How many vessels does your species command?" Captain Miller looked up from whatever he was thinking about. "Oh, we have a few ships here and there. Nothing too fancy. We prefer talking things through rather than waving weapons around." "A few ships?" Zixithara's voice rose slightly. "The Empire controls fleets of millions. Your entire species brings 3 small vessels?" Well, these are just exploration ships, Miller said. We figured 3 was enough for a friendly chat. Did you want us to bring more? We could call some friends if you think it's necessary. Commander Torres glanced up from his book. Are we running long? I promised my wife I'd call home before dinner. Zixthara felt a chill run through her alien body. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. They had entered Imperial space with minimal protection, showed no fear of the Empire's power, and one of them was more interested in his book than in galactic politics. Perhaps you don't understand, Zixthara said carefully. The Galactic Empire spans 12,000 worlds. We command fleets that could block out stars. Entire species have fallen to our might. That's impressive, Dr. Park said. It must be a lot of work managing so many systems. Do you have good computer networks for administration? The human was asking about paperwork. Administrative efficiency. Zixthara had described the Empire's terrifying power, and this alien woman wanted to know about their filing systems. Captain Miller stretched and yawned. Is there somewhere I could get coffee? It's been a long day. Coffee? Zixthara asked. It's a hot drink, Dr. Park explained helpfully. Helps people stay awake. Very popular on Earth. We'd be happy to trade some if you're interested. They were offering to trade beverages with the Galactic Empire, like merchants at a spaceport. The meeting continued for 2 hours. The humans answered every question politely and completely. They provided basic information about their technology, their government, and their culture. Nothing they said was threatening or impressive by Imperial standards. Yet something about their calm confidence made Zixthara more nervous than any warfleet had ever managed. When the meeting ended, the humans thanked everyone for their time. Dr. Park complimented the station's air recycling system. Commander. Torres marked his place in his book with a small piece of paper. Captain Miller asked if anyone knew a good restaurant nearby. As their ship departed, Zixthara watched from the observation deck. The human vessels moved away at the same steady pace they had arrived with. No hurry, no fear. They flew like people, heading home after a pleasant but ordinary day at work. Zixthara had met species that conquered through strength. She had dealt with aliens who survived through cleverness. She had negotiated with beings who inspired others through wisdom or fear. But she had never encountered anything like these humans. They treated the mighty Galactic Empire like a neighbor they had just met, worthy of respect but nothing to get excited about. For the first time in her career, Zixthara felt truly unsettled by a first contact. These humans were either hiding something incredible, or they really were this calm about everything. Both possibilities were terrifying. Emperor Kethvar had ruled the Galactic Empire for 300 years. In that time, he had watched countless species kneel before his throne. Some came as conquerors, only to discover they had bitten off more than they could chew. Others arrived as supplicants hoping to join the Empire's protection. All of them showed proper respect for his power. The throne room had been designed to inspire awe. The ceiling stretched a kilometer high, supported by pillars that seemed to defy gravity. Holographic displays showed the Empire's vast fleets patrolling 12,000 worlds. The Emperor's throne sat on a platform 50 meters above the main floor, forcing visitors to look up at him like a god. When the human delegation entered, Emperor Kethvar watched their faces carefully. Most aliens gasped at the sight. Some fell to their knees. Others puffed up with aggressive displays trying to hide their fear. The 3 humans walked in, chatting quietly among themselves. Dr. Lisa Park looked around the massive room with the same expression she might use in a museum. Wow, this is impressive architecture. The acoustics must be incredible. Captain Jake Miller craned his neck to look up at the throne. That's quite a climb. Do you have elevators or do you walk up those stairs every day? Commander Ben Torres had brought his book again. Emperor Kethvar felt the first stirring of annoyance. These tiny aliens were supposed to be intimidated. Instead, they seemed curious about the building's practical details. Welcome, humans. The Emperor's voice boomed through hidden speakers, echoing dramatically off the walls. You stand before the throne of the Galactic Empire, ruler of 12,000 worlds, commander of fleets beyond counting. Thank you for meeting with us, Dr. Park called back. Should we come closer, or is there a microphone system? This room is really big. The Emperor gestured, and a gravity platform lifted the humans to his level. Most aliens gripped the railings in terror during their first anti-gravity ride. The humans looked around with interest, like tourists on a sightseeing tour. I have ruled this empire for 3 centuries, Emperor Kethvar continued once they reached his platform. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched worlds burn and civilizations crumble. Tell me, humans, what makes you think you belong among the stars? Dr. Park thought for a moment. Well, we're already here, so I guess we figured that part out. We're hoping to be good neighbors. Maybe do some trading, share some ideas. We brought coffee samples if you'd like to try them. The Emperor stared at her. Good neighbors? Coffee samples? This was not how these conversations usually went. Perhaps you misunderstand the situation, he said. The Empire does not simply accept new species as equals. You must prove your worth. Demonstrate your power. Show us why we should not simply conquer your small world and be done with it. Captain Miller looked genuinely confused. Why would you want to conquer Earth? It's nice enough, but it's just one planet. Wouldn't that be more trouble than it's worth? Are you questioning the might of the Empire? The Emperor's voice grew dangerous. Oh no, Dr. Park said quickly. We're sure you could conquer Earth if you really wanted to. We're just wondering why you would bother. Seems like a lot of work for not much benefit. Emperor Kethvar felt a strange sensation. These humans were not cowering or threatening. They were analyzing the situation like a business proposition. They treated the conquest of their homeworld like a minor inconvenience that reasonable people could work around. Let me demonstrate the Empire's power, the Emperor said. The room's holographic displays activated, showing massive battle fleets destroying planets. Cities burned as Imperial forces landed. Entire civilizations fell to the Empire's might. The humans watched politely. Captain Miller pointed to one display. Interesting strategy. Have you considered orbital bombardment instead of ground invasion? Seems more efficient. That's a lot of firepower, Dr. Park observed. The logistics must be complicated. How do you supply fleets that size? Commander Torres looked up from his book. Are those plasma cannons or particle beams? The energy output looks impressive. They were critiquing his demonstrations of overwhelming force like military historians studying ancient battles. Emperor Kethvar's frustration reached a breaking point. He activated his personal shields and drew his ceremonial plasma sword. The weapon could cut through starship hulls. Its energy field glowed with deadly light. Behold the power that has conquered galaxies, he roared. The humans didn't flinch. They didn't step back. They watched with the same polite interest they had shown everything else. That's beautiful craftsmanship, Dr. Park said. Is that ceremonial, or do you actually use it in combat? Both, the Emperor said, somewhat deflated. Must be good exercise, Captain Miller added. Sword fighting is great cardio. Commander Torres closed his book with his finger marking the page. Your Majesty, are we running long? I promised to call my family before their bedtime. The Emperor slowly lowered his sword. In 300 years of rule, no one had ever been bored by his ultimate display of power. These humans acted like he had shown them a mildly interesting hobby. You show no fear, he said quietly. Should we? Dr. Park asked. You've been very polite so far. The sword is impressive, but you don't seem like you're actually planning to use it on us. What if I were? Dr. Park shrugged. Then we'd probably have to cut this meeting short. It would be unfortunate, though. We were hoping to establish good relations. The casual way she discussed her own possible death made the Emperor's blood run cold. These humans were either incredibly brave or completely insane. What would it take to frighten you, he asked. The 3 humans looked at each other. Captain Miller spoke first. Real threats, I guess. Something that actually endangered our families or our freedom. The Empire could destroy your entire world, the Emperor said. You could try, Dr. Park agreed. But that seems like it would create more problems than it would solve. Wars are expensive. Wouldn't trade agreements be more profitable? She was right, and the Emperor knew it. The cost of conquering and occupying a determined world often exceeded the benefits. But most species didn't point this out during their first meeting. "You speak as though you have experience with such things," he said. "Humans have fought wars before," Commander Torres said. "We learned that talking usually works better than shooting." "Usually?" the Emperor asked. "Sometimes you have to shoot." "A little bit first," Captain Miller admitted. "But we prefer starting with conversation." The Emperor dismissed the human delegation with more confusion than he had ever felt after a first contact. These aliens had treated his throne room like a tourist attraction, his demonstrations of power like educational videos, and his threats like business negotiations. As the humans left, Dr. Park turned back. "Thank you for your time, Your Majesty. This was fascinating. If you ever want to visit Earth, you'd be welcome. We have some interesting historical sites you might enjoy." She had invited the Emperor of the Galaxy to go sightseeing on her homeworld. After beer, they left. Emperor Kethavar sat alone on his throne, staring at the vast room that had intimidated thousands of species. For the first time in centuries, he felt small. These humans were either the bravest beings in the galaxy, or they knew something he didn't. Both possibilities kept him awake that night, wondering what kind of world could produce people who treated galactic emperors like friendly neighbors they had just met. Reports began flowing into Imperial intelligence from across the galaxy. More human ships had appeared, and each encounter followed the same disturbing pattern. These beings showed no proper respect for the natural order of things. They treated deadly situations like minor inconveniences and dangerous aliens like old friends. On the trading station at Kepler 7, Captain Greg Sullivan had docked his small cargo vessel between two massive Zephyrian war freighters. The Zephyrians stood 8 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor, with mandibles that could snap steel bars. They were known for their aggressive business tactics and short tempers. Station manager Vex High watched through security cameras as the human approached the Zephyrian traders. This would either be very short or very bloody. The lead Zephyrian, war trader Clicksnath, towered over the small human. His mandibles clicked aggressively as he spoke. "Human thing, you dare park beside warriors of the Hive? Your tiny ship insults us with its presence?" Captain Sullivan looked up at the enormous alien without any sign of concern. "Sorry about that. I'm new here. Great ship you've got, by the way. Those hull modifications look really practical." Clicksnath's mandibles clicked faster, which usually meant he was about to attack. "You mock us with false praise." "Not at all," Sullivan said calmly. "I've been looking at your cargo capacity modifications. Very clever use of space. Mind if I ask who did the work?" The Zephyrian paused. No one had ever complimented his ship before. Most beings either ran away or tried to look tough. The modifications were done by Hive engineer Thexhigh, Clicksnath said, slightly confused. "Outstanding work. I'm renovating my own ship. Could you give me his contact information?" 20 minutes later, station manager Vexhigh watched in amazement as the Zephyrian warriors helped the human load his cargo. They were discussing engine modifications like old friends. Clicksnath even gave Sullivan a bottle of fermented bug juice, which was considered a great honor among Zephyrians. "How did you do that?" Vexhigh asked Sullivan later. "Do what?" Sullivan seemed genuinely puzzled. "Those Zephyrians have started 3 wars over smaller insults than parking next to their ship." Sullivan shrugged. "They seemed nice enough once we got talking. They're really proud of their engineering work. Who doesn't like having their accomplishments noticed?" On the industrial world of Keth Prime, human engineer Sam Davis was getting a tour of the planet's mining operations. His guide, Supervisor Morthek, enjoyed showing off the Empire's most destructive technology. "Behold the planetary excavation array," Morthek announced proudly. "These weapons can crack open worlds to reach the resources beneath. We've repurposed them for mining, but they retain their planet-killing power." Davis walked around the massive machines, taking notes on a small tablet. "Impressive scale. What's your energy efficiency like with this setup?" "Energy efficiency?" Morthek was confused. Most visitors either cowered in fear or demanded to know how many planets the weapons had destroyed. Yeah, cracking planets has to use enormous amounts of power. We found asteroid mining more efficient for most resources. Lower startup costs, easier logistics. You have planet cracking technology? Morthek asked carefully. Oh, we've figured out some workarounds for the energy consumption problems. Different approach, though. We mostly use it for geological research these days. Davis continued examining the equipment like a technician checking routine maintenance. He pointed out several areas where efficiency could be improved and suggested modifications that would increase output while reducing power consumption. Morthek found himself taking notes on improvements to weapons that could destroy worlds, given casually by a human who seemed to think planet cracking was basic engineering. The most disturbing report came from the Empire's most feared interrogator. Mind-Render Vexhai specialized in breaking the will of captured enemies. His psychic abilities could shatter the strongest minds, leaving victims babbling helplessly. Human diplomat Kate Brooks had volunteered for a routine security screening, which included a basic mental probe. Vexhai expected the usual results. Even friendly aliens showed fear when he began his work. He reached out with his mind, probing the surface of Brooks' thoughts. Instead of the expected fear and confusion, he found calmness. Disturbing calmness. Her mind felt like a still lake on a quiet day. Vexhai pushed deeper, using techniques that had broken enemy spies and alien warriors. Brooks' mind didn't resist. It simply remained unmoved, like trying to knock down a mountain with harsh words. Is something wrong? Brooks asked, noticing Vexhai's expression of strain. You look like you're getting a headache. The mind-render was getting a headache. His psychic assault was bouncing off this human's mind like water off a rock. He tried his most powerful techniques, the ones reserved for the most dangerous enemies. Brooks reached into her purse and pulled out a small bottle. Here, try these. They're for headaches. Aspirin. Very effective for stress-related pain. She was offering him medicine, while he was trying to break her mind, with the same tone she might use to offer directions to a lost tourist. Vexhai accepted the pills with shaking hands. In 50 years of interrogation, no one had ever shown him kindness during a psychic assault. The pattern was becoming clear to Imperial intelligence. These humans didn't just act calm, they were genuinely untroubled by situations that would terrify veteran soldiers. The final report came from Captain Alex Turner of the human cargo vessel Steady Progress. Pirates had attacked his ship in the Outer Rim, a routine occurrence that usually ended in robbery or death. Security footage from nearby patrol ships showed something unprecedented. Turner had walked calmly toward 20 heavily armed Craxian pirates while they shouted threats. Instead of cowering or fighting, he had started talking. Gentlemen, Turner's voice came clearly over the comm channels. I understand you're having some economic difficulties. That's tough. The freight business isn't easy either. The pirates, confused by this response, had actually stopped threatening him to listen. Turner continued. Now, I've got a cargo hold full of medical supplies headed for the relief station at Vega 9. Poor people need these medicines, I'm sure you understand. 20 minutes later, the pirates were helping Turner load his cargo and asking for his contact information. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Grixhal, gave Turner his personal comm code in case he ever needed protection in that sector. When Imperial patrol ships arrived, expecting to find debris and bodies, they found Turner sharing coffee with former pirates who were now providing him with an escort to his destination. How did you convince them not to rob you? The patrol commander asked. Rob me? Turner seemed surprised. They're just trying to make a living out here. I explained that my cargo was medical supplies for refugees. Once they understood the situation, they were happy to help. The pirates had become volunteer escorts for humanitarian aid. Imperial Intelligence Chief Mordak compiled all the reports and presented them to the High Council. The pattern was undeniable and terrifying. These humans, he reported, show no proper fear responses. They treat our most dangerous weapons like interesting science projects. They convert our fiercest warriors into friendly contacts through simple politeness. They resist our most powerful psychic attacks without apparent effort. Are they using advanced technology? Admiral Thexmore asked. No technology we can detect. They appear to be genuinely this calm about everything. The High Council sat in stunned silence. An entire species that couldn't be intimidated, threatened, or broken. Beings who treated the Empire's ultimate weapons like museum pieces and converted pirates to humanitarian aid workers through casual conversation. What kind of world produces such creatures? Emperor Kethvar asked quietly. That question would soon be answered, and the answer would shake the Empire to its foundations. Imperial Strategic Command called an emergency meeting. The massive war room on the capital world hummed with nervous energy as the Empire's greatest military minds gathered around the central holographic display. Admiral Thexmore stood at the center, his usually confident bearing shaken by weeks of disturbing reports. Members of the High Council, he began, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. We face an unprecedented situation. Every human contact follows the same pattern. They show no fear of our power. They treat our ultimate weapons like curiosities. They convert our enemies into allies through simple conversation. The holographic display showed footage from across the Empire. Human traders chatting with deadly predator species. Human engineers examining world-cracking weapons like routine equipment. Human diplomats remaining calm during psychic assaults that would break trained soldiers. This is not normal behavior, Admiral Thexmore continued. In 12,000 years of Imperial expansion, we have never encountered a species that simply cannot be intimidated. Counselor Vextai, a veteran of countless wars, raised a clawed hand. Perhaps they hide advanced defensive technology, secret weapons, hidden fleets. Our scouts have thoroughly examined their space, Admiral Thexmore replied. They have exactly what they claim. A few thousand ships, mostly for system defense. Their technology is advanced but not beyond our capabilities. Then they are fools, War Chief Clicksnath declared. Too stupid to understand danger. The Admiral activated another display. That brings us to our next problem. Dr. Helen Ross, human, xenobiologist, addressed the Imperial Science Consortium yesterday. Her presentation has caused panic across 17 worlds. The hologram showed a pleasant-looking human woman with graying hair and a warm smile. She stood before an audience of the galaxy's most brilliant scientists, looking completely at ease. Dr. Ross was asked to explain human evolution, Admiral Thexmore said. Her answer has shattered our understanding of what constitutes normal, intelligent life. The recording began. Dr. Ross's cheerful voice filled the war room. Humans evolved on what you might call a death world, she said casually. Earth is quite hostile to life. Most of the animals try to eat you. The weather can kill you in dozens of ways. The planet itself regularly tries to wipe out everything living on it. The audience of alien scientists had grown very quiet. Have ice ages that last thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that block out the sun. Earthquakes that can level entire continents. Our oceans are full of predators. Our land is covered with more predators. And even our plants are often poisonous. Dr. Ross showed images of Earth's wildlife. Creatures with enormous teeth and claws. Venomous snakes and spiders. Predators that could hunt down prey across continents. Of course, humans are persistence hunters, she continued in the same pleasant tone. We can literally run our prey to death. Most animals can sprint faster than us, but we can maintain a steady pace for hours or days until they collapse from exhaustion. The recording showed human persistence hunting. Groups of early humans, tracking animals across vast distances, never stopping, never giving up, until their prey died from sheer fatigue. We also have redundant organ systems, Dr. Ross added. Humans can survive the loss of kidneys, lungs, parts of our liver, our appendix, our tonsils. We can function with damaged hearts or brains. We heal from injuries that would kill most species. Admiral Thexmore paused the recording. The war room was silent. Several council members looked physically ill. She described their homeworld like it was a pleasant vacation spot, he said. A planet that regularly experiences extinction-level events populated by creatures designed to kill everything around them, and these humans consider it quite nice. Counselor Zeftai found her voice. What do they fear? Admiral Thexmore restarted the recording. A scientist in the audience had asked the same question. Dr. Ross had thought for a moment before answering. Spiders, mostly. Public speaking makes many humans nervous. Running out of coffee is always annoying. The alien audience had stared at her in horrified confusion. A species that survived daily on a world full of apex predators was afraid of small arthropods and social embarrassment. She went on to explain human history. Admiral Thexmore continued. Wars that lasted decades, plagues that killed millions, ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions. Each time, humans simply adapted and continued. The holographic display showed images from human history. Cities destroyed by war, rebuilt stronger. Populations devastated by disease, recovering within generations. Entire civilizations collapsed, replaced by new ones that learned from the mistakes. They've survived everything their nightmare planet could throw at them, Admiral Thexmore said. Then they looked at the stars and decided to see what else was out there. The final part of Dr. Ross's presentation appeared on the screen. She was discussing human space exploration with the same cheerful enthusiasm she had shown for everything else. Space is actually quite peaceful compared to Earth, she said. It's mostly empty, which is refreshing. The occasional asteroid or solar flare is manageable. We've dealt with worse weather at home. A Zephyrian scientist had asked about the dangers of space travel. Oh, there are risks, Dr. Ross agreed. Equipment failures, radiation exposure, running out of supplies. But humans have always been good at making do with limited resources. It's how we survived on Earth. She made interstellar space travel sound like camping. Admiral Thexmore turned off the recording. Dr. Ross then offered to trade Earth coffee, music, and literature to anyone interested. She treated the Imperial Science Consortium like a friendly cultural exchange program. The silence in the war room stretched for long minutes. Finally, Emperor Kethvar spoke. These humans, he said slowly, are not calm because they are peaceful. They are calm because nothing we can do will surprise them. War Chief Clicksnath's mandibles clicked nervously. A species that survived on a deathworld. Persistence hunters. Redundant biology. They see our ultimate weapons as routine equipment. It gets worse, Admiral Thexmore said. He activated another file. Human merchant Tony Clark has established regular trade routes through the Scorpion Nebula. That sector is considered too dangerous for civilian traffic. The display showed shipping routes through space that even Imperial Navy patrols avoided. Asteroid fields that could crush starships. Radiation storms that would kill most crews. Pirates. Hostile aliens and gravitational anomalies that had destroyed entire fleets. When questioned about the dangers, Clark said space was pretty empty mostly, and that the occasional pirate attack just meant more interesting stories to tell at bars. Several council members made distressed sounds. He's not even a military officer, Admiral Thexmore continued. He's a civilian cargo hauler. He flies through sectors that terrify our battle-hardened Marines, and he considers it routine work. Emperor Kethvar stood slowly. These humans have spent their entire evolution learning to survive in conditions that would kill our strongest warriors. They've made peace with dangers that give us nightmares. What do we do? Counselor Vextai asked. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. We pray that they truly want to be friends. The war room fell silent again. The Galactic Empire, conqueror of 12,000 worlds, was afraid of a species that offered to trade coffee and asked about interior decorating. For the first time in Imperial history, the High Council faced beings who genuinely couldn't be threatened. Humans weren't brave or reckless. They were simply accustomed to dangers that made Imperial power seem manageable. The Empire had built its strength on fear. But how do you rule through intimidation when your subjects treat your ultimate weapons like household appliances? That question would define the Empire's future, and the answer would come from an even more terrifying source: direct examination of human military capabilities. General Carthox was the Empire's greatest military strategist. He had planned campaigns that conquered entire sectors and designed defenses that had never been breached. His tactical genius was legendary throughout the galaxy. But the human problem required a different approach. We need to understand their true capabilities, he told Emperor Kethvar. These beings show no fear because they either know something we don't, or they're completely insane. Either way, we need answers. The general devised what he considered the perfect test. He would invite a human military officer to observe Imperial war games. The scenario would pit their most advanced combat simulations against a theoretical human invasion of Imperial space. Colonel Rick Hayes arrived at the testing facility 3 days later. He was a quiet man in his 50s with graying hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no visible weapons and carried only a small notebook. Colonel Hayes. General Carthox greeted him. "Thank you for accepting our invitation. We hope this will be educational for both our species." "Happy to help," Hayes replied, always interested in seeing how other militaries approach problems. They entered the main simulation chamber, a massive room filled with holographic displays, showing star systems, fleet movements, and battle scenarios. The Empire's top tacticians worked at control stations around the room. "This is our most advanced strategic simulator," General Carthox explained. "We use it to test our defenses against hypothetical threats. Today we're running a scenario involving a human invasion of Imperial space." Colonel Hayes nodded politely. "Sounds interesting. What assumptions are you using for human capabilities?" "Based on our observations of your technology and fleet size, we've extrapolated your maximum potential military strength." The simulation began. The holographic display showed human forces entering Imperial space. The simulated human fleet numbered, in the millions of ships, a vast armada that dwarfed anything the Empire had ever faced. Colonel Hayes watched quietly as the simulation played out. The human forces used increasingly sophisticated tactics, coordinated multi-front assaults, technological superiority, strategic deception. The simulated humans fought with ruthless efficiency. "Impressive simulation," Hayes said after watching for several minutes, "though the numbers seem a bit high." General Carthox felt a moment of relief. "Too high? Good. We wanted to ensure we weren't underestimating human capabilities." "Well, humans have maybe a few thousand military ships total," Hayes said. "Most of those are for system defense. We don't really maintain large offensive fleets." The general's relief lasted exactly 3 seconds. "But I have to say," Hayes continued, "the tactics in your simulation are pretty basic compared to what we'd actually do." The room fell silent. General Carthox felt his blood turn cold. "Basic? Oh yes. This is all very straightforward. Direct assault, superior numbers, technological advantage. It's the kind of strategy you use when you want to minimize casualties and end things quickly." "And what would you actually do?" the general asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Colonel Hayes smiled apologetically. "Well, it wouldn't be fair to give away trade secrets, but let's just say humans have gotten creative during our own wars." The general's tactical computers began analyzing human history. What they found was beyond comprehension. These calm, coffee-drinking beings had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare against their own species. They had survived ice ages by becoming more efficient killers. They had conquered their entire planet through superior violence, then decided violence was inefficient and switched to economics. The computer showed human innovations in warfare. Biological weapons that could wipe out entire populations, chemical agents that made land uninhabitable for generations, nuclear weapons that could sterilize continents. "Your species has weapons of mass destruction?" General Carthox asked carefully. "Had," Hayes corrected. "We mostly got rid of the really nasty stuff, too dangerous to keep around. Although we kept the knowledge just in case." Just in case. The casual way he mentioned genocide made the general's hands shake. The analysis continued. Human military. History revealed tactics that violated every civilized rule of war. Total warfare. Scorched earth policies. Psychological warfare designed to break enemy morale completely. "You fought wars of extermination against your own species?" the general asked. "Couple of times," Hayes admitted. "Not our proudest moments. We learned that total war costs more than it's worth. Much more efficient to find common ground and work together." Common ground. Work together. The humans had learned to cooperate because mutual annihilation was economically inefficient. "What stopped you from destroying yourselves?" General Carthox asked. Colonel Hayes thought for a moment. Mutual deterrence, mostly. When everyone can kill everyone else, nobody wants to start the fight. Makes negotiation look pretty attractive. The general's computers finished their analysis of human military capability. The results were terrifying. A species that had weaponized biology, chemistry, physics, and psychology. Beings who had turned their entire planet into a fortress and then decided it was too much work to maintain. Colonel, the general said slowly, your species could destroy the Empire. Hayes looked genuinely surprised. Why would we want to do that? Wars are expensive. Trade is profitable. Seems like an easy choice. But you could if you wanted to. I suppose, Hayes said. But that would be like burning down your neighbor's house because you don't like their music. Creates more problems than it solves. The casual admission was more terrifying than any threat. These humans could annihilate the Empire, and they considered it a minor inconvenience that reasonable people could avoid through proper communication. What would it take for humanity to see the Empire as a threat? General Carthox asked. Colonel Hayes considered the question seriously. Actually threatening something we care about, I guess. Our families, our freedom, our way of life, the usual things. And then we'd have to do something about it. Hayes's tone remained conversational, but something cold flickered in his eyes. We're pretty good at solving problems when we need to. The general understood. These humans weren't peaceful because they were weak. They were peaceful because they were strong enough to choose peace. They had climbed to the top of their planet's food chain, mastered every form of warfare their species could devise, and then decided that cooperation worked better than conquest. Your simulation was interesting, Hayes said as they prepared to leave. Very educational. Thank you for sharing your defensive strategies. He had been studying Imperial tactics while pretending to watch human ones. General Carthox escorted the colonel to his ship, his mind reeling with implications. The Empire faced a species that could destroy them, but preferred to trade coffee. Beings who had perfected warfare and chosen economics instead. Creatures who treated galactic conquest like a household chore that was more trouble than it was worth. That night, General Carthox sent his report to Emperor Kethavar. It was brief and to the point. These humans, he wrote, are not our enemies, because they choose not to be. They have the capability to end us and the wisdom not to use it. I recommend we accept their friendship quickly, before they change their minds. The Empire's greatest military strategist was advising surrender to a species that had never threatened them. But everyone who read the report understood why. The humans had done something no enemy had ever accomplished. They had made the Empire afraid not of their weapons but of their restraint. What kind of beings become more terrifying when they choose not to fight? Emperor Kethavar had not slept well in weeks. The human problem consumed his thoughts, creating a crisis unlike any the Empire had ever faced. For 12,000 years, imperial rule had been simple. Superior force created fear. Fear created obedience, and obedience created order. But how do you rule beings who cannot be frightened? The Emperor called for a private meeting with the human leadership. No ceremony, no throne room displays, no demonstrations of power. Just a quiet conference room and the truth. Dr. Lisa Park arrived with Captain Jake Miller and Commander Ben Torres. They brought coffee, as they always did, and offered some to the Emperor's guards. The guards, now accustomed to human behavior, actually accepted. I need to understand your species, Emperor Kethavar said without preamble. Every report I receive makes less sense than the last. Your people treat our ultimate weapons like household appliances. They convert our fiercest warriors into trading partners through casual conversation. They resist our most powerful interrogation techniques by offering aspirin. Dr. Park sipped her coffee thoughtfully. We're just trying to be good neighbors, Your Majesty. Is there something specific we're doing wrong? Wrong? The Emperor laughed, a sound without humor. You're doing everything wrong according to how the galaxy is supposed to work. Species are either conquerors or conquered. They either threaten or submit. They show proper fear or proper aggression. You do none of these things. Would you prefer we be more aggressive? Captain Miller asked. Because that seems counterproductive. for everyone involved. The Emperor leaned forward. Dr. Park, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need an honest answer. What would it take for humanity to see the Empire as a threat? Dr. Park set down her coffee cup and met his gaze. Honestly, you'd have to threaten something we actually care about. Our families, our freedom, our way of life. The usual things that make people fight back. And if we did threaten those things, then we'd have to stop you. Her tone remained conversational, but the Emperor heard something steel hard underneath. We prefer talking, but we're not helpless. The Emperor felt the chill he had been dreading. How would you stop us? Dr. Park glanced at her companions. Captain Miller nodded slightly. Your Majesty, she said carefully, humans have dealt with existential threats before. We've survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and our own worst impulses. We've gotten good at problem solving under pressure. What kind of problems have you solved? Commander Torres spoke up. Wars, mostly. Humans are unfortunately experienced at warfare. We spent thousands of years fighting each other before we learned that cooperation works better. The Emperor knew about human military history from the reports, but hearing it from them directly was different. You could destroy the Empire. Could try, Dr. Park said. But why would we want to? Destroying things is easy. Building things is hard. We'd much rather help you build something better, Captain Miller added. Besides, conquest is expensive and time-consuming. Trade agreements are much more profitable for everyone. The casual way they discussed galactic warfare versus economic policy made the Emperor's head spin. You speak as though annihilating civilizations is a minor inconvenience. It is, Dr. Park said simply. Humans learned a long time ago that the real challenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's figuring out how to live with them afterward. The Emperor stared at her. You've thought about conquering the Empire? Of course we have, she replied. We think about lots of things. Contingency planning is basic prudence. But thinking about something and wanting to do it are very different. What stopped you? Dr. Park smiled. Math mostly. The cost-benefit analysis doesn't work out. Wars are expensive. Occupation is complicated. And governing unwilling subjects is a nightmare. Much easier to just be friends and trade coffee. The Emperor realized he was looking at beings who had analyzed galactic conquest like a business proposal and rejected it as unprofitable. What do you want from the Empire? He asked. Friendship, Captain Miller said. Trade agreements, cultural, exchange. Maybe some mutual defense pacts if everyone's interested. The usual stuff neighbors do. Neighbors, the Emperor repeated. You see the Empire as neighbors. What else would you be? Dr. Park asked. You live in the same galaxy. You're sentient beings with your own culture and interests. Seems like the definition of neighbors to me. The Emperor had ruled 12,000 worlds through fear and force. These humans wanted to treat him like the family next door. Most species either worship us or plot against us, he said. That sounds exhausting, Commander Torres observed. We were hoping for something more relaxed. Something more relaxed. The Galactic Empire, reduced to a casual friendship. What if I said no? The Emperor asked. What if I declared humanity an enemy of the Empire? Dr. Park looked genuinely sad. That would be unfortunate. We were looking forward to learning about your cultures, trying your food, maybe sharing some of our music. But if you really want to be enemies, I suppose that's your choice. You wouldn't fight back? We'd defend ourselves if necessary, Captain Miller said, but we'd keep trying to convince you to reconsider. Wars end eventually. Friendships can last forever. The Emperor sat back in his chair. These humans had done the impossible. They had made the Empire's ultimate threat, eternal war, seem less appealing than coffee and cultural exchange. You realize, he said slowly, that accepting your friendship means admitting the Empire's entire foundation is wrong. We've ruled through fear for 12,000 years. Fear's a useful tool sometimes, Dr. Park agreed, but it's a terrible way to build lasting relationships. People who obey you because they're scared will turn on you the moment someone scarier comes along. And you're not scared of us, Should we be? You've been nothing but polite so far. The Emperor made his decision. It was perhaps the most important choice in imperial history, and it came down to a simple realization. The Empire could conquer humanity, but it could never control them. These beings would resist occupation, survive destruction, and probably convert their conquerors into friends given enough time. Better to accept their friendship while they were offering it freely. Ambassador Park, he said formally, the Galactic Empire would be honored to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Dr. Park smiled and offered her hand to shake. Excellent. We brought some sample trade agreements to look over, if you're interested, and Captain Miller has some coffee varieties we thought you might enjoy. 6 months later, humans had become the Empire's most valued allies. They established trade routes through sectors considered too dangerous for civilian traffic. They mediated disputes between hostile species through a combination of patience and coffee diplomacy. They provided engineering consultations that improved everything from starship design to agricultural efficiency. The Empire's enemies learned to fear human negotiators more than imperial fleets. These calm, reasonable beings had a disturbing tendency to convince pirates to become merchants, turn terrorists into reformers, and transform bitter enemies into trading partners. The galaxy had found its peacekeepers, and they brought snacks. Emperor Kethvar often reflected on the human conquest of the Empire. They had succeeded where countless others had failed, not through superior force or cunning strategy, but through the simple, radical act of treating everyone like potential friends. The humans had conquered the galaxy's heart without firing a single shot, and they had done it by offering coffee and asking about everyone's day. In the end, the Empire learned something it had forgotten during 12,000 years of rule through fear. Friendship was the ultimate form of power, because it was the only force that grew stronger when shared. The humans had taught the galaxy how to be neighbors again, and everyone was surprised by how much better that felt than being conquerors or conquered.